My Mind podcast. On this show, we decipher the secrets, tips, and guidance of fashion and psychology with the world's most inspiring people. Our mission is to unlock the power to become the best version of yourself by turning their wisdom and knowledge into practical advice. Have you ever wondered how your clothing choices impact your mood, confidence, and even your environmental footprint? Today, we are thrilled to delve into the world of sustainable fashion with Charlotte Piller, co founder of Lotta Ludwigson, who will share her journey, insights, and actionable tips on making fashion choices that are not only stylish, but also kind to our planet. Thank you so much for being here, Charlotte.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Let's dive straight in. Charlotte, could you start by sharing your journey into sustainable fashion? What sparked and started your passion for this field?
Yes, sure. Actually, I think it's not the typical story. So I know so many other women that knew they always wanted to have their own brand one day. That was not the case for me. For me, it was very different. So I did my master's in innovation and entrepreneurship at a business school in Copenhagen. And there I really, really deep dived into entrepreneurial processes and to see entrepreneurship as a tool of change, a tool to solve the biggest societal problems that we have. And at one point, I thought, okay, now I know how the tool works. I now would like to apply it. So I basically need a problem now. And when looking for problems, I basically entered the fashion industry because the fashion industry has so many problems. I think, name an issue, fashion has it. So this was my way into the fashion industry. Very uncommon way. And there I saw so much potential, so many things that could and need to be changed. And then I got stuck there. Yeah, that was
Well,
my way. Yeah, very
welcome to the fashion.
unconventional.
Welcome to the world of fashion. How exciting is that? And sometimes crossing
Yeah,
into it is the best way to do it.
yeah, exactly. No, I mean it's an amazing industry in terms of the aesthetics and the way you can express yourself through clothing, but a big part is also a very dark and ugly and a polluting side in the fashion industry.
Yeah, speaking of self-expression, we have a kind of tradition here on this podcast. So, because not every listener is watching this video, can you tell us what are you wearing today and why?
Yeah, that's an easy task. So I'm wearing our latest edition. We just launched our Alva collection. So I'm currently wearing a blazer that is a color block blazer. So it has candy pink and tangerine red elements put together in a blazer, and then paired it with a t-shirt and some white jeans.
Great. And how does it feel when you wear your own clothing?
This actually, feels amazing. I would have never expected that back in the days, but to really come up with an idea, with a design, and then going through all the processes until you finally hold your pieces in your hand and then even wearing it. I mean, this is crazy. And every time I go to events and wear my own suits and blazers, it really, really feels so good and so confident as well.
That's fantastic to hear. And that's the power of fashion that lies within it, right? The positive side of fashion, what it can do. Coming back to your brand, as we're talking about the blazer that is from your collection, what led you to co-found Lotta Ludwigson, and what does it stand for?
Yeah. Yeah, so as I said, so I delved into the fashion industry, and then I saw so much potential what should be changed at one point. And I worked at a think tank in Copenhagen where it was all about, yeah, how to turn from like a linear economy in the fashion industry to a circular one. And we outlined a lot of things that bigger corporate need to change in order to become more circular. And then yeah, at one point I left Copenhagen, I went to Berlin, I went to the startup scene, but I always looked and stayed connected to the fashion industry and thought, okay, what about the things that we outlined back then? Did someone actually apply it? And then 3 years later, I realized, well, there's still not that many circular products. There's still not designing in the way that needs to be signed to make it really holistically sustainable. And then I thought, okay, maybe I will just do it on my own and I will start up a company. And because I want to create pieces and alternatives to the conventional fashion so that women can wear their values, especially in a professional context. So that was the starting point to look what are all the amazing women out there being in politics, in media, in business. They are wearing blazers, they are wearing suits, but usually they are not really sustainable. But often they do really good things. They have amazing values, but they just cannot wear them because nothing, like no alternatives, really exist. So yeah, that was basically the starting point. And then I thought, okay, I will just do that. I will give them those alternatives.
That's correct. That's absolutely great because I, as an example, I love blazers and I love to wear like more the traditional business wear, but with a twist, like with a fashionable twist. And I really,
Mhm.
really love especially the collection you came out with now, because I feel like everything around the world is so difficult and terrible at the moment. If you open, the news channels, you're kind of getting frustrated very quickly, and then it reflects on the street. A lot of people wear no colors. Everyone wears beige and white and gray and black. And
True.
when I saw your collection, not only you have the perfect standard capsule wardrobe pieces that a woman can wear until it falls apart, but also this the blazer you're wearing today it's on my wish list. I'm really I love the candy pink and the tangerine red. It's absolutely amazing. And that's also one thing that I find very challenging when I look into sustainable brands, because being sustainable, I don't want to necessarily look sustainable, right? You want to look
Yes.
fashionable. Sometimes sustainable brands have this kind of ecological driven look with very muted colors, and that just does not suit me. So, well done. At least from my perspective, I'm very excited, and not only excited for you going on this path, but also seeing what comes out of it. And I find that really fascinating. So here, a bit of words of encouragement, I guess.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was a big pain point, that so many women actually wanted to dress more sustainable, but yeah, just like the alternatives out there, either they were not sustainable enough or they were just not fashionable enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a difficult job to bridge the gap, but I think, yeah, as you said, we did it quite well. So that feels pretty good.
Yeah. Speaking of challenges for the consumer, but what were some initial challenges and triumphs you encountered while founding with your co-founder?
Yeah, of course, there are so many. Yeah, because it's not like that you would say, okay, I want to create a nice sustainable suit, and I'm now just going and getting all the sustainable materials and components and just put it together. No, the problem is that there are not enough sustainable components on the market yet. So, for example, our approach is to create according to the cradle to cradle design philosophy, so that everything at the very end, when the suit is no longer used in many, many years, it could decompose. So, not turning into textile waste, basically. And like that, we needed specific components, so no polyester, no plastic. And that was very difficult. So, when we were looking for shoulder pads, for example, there were no shoulder pads without plastic in it. So we had to create the very first shoulder pads that are compostable without any polyester at all. And this took us 1.5 years already. And then the same for the fabrics. Of course, it's easy to maybe create fabrics without polyester, but then what about the chemicals? So, and like the way how it's dyed. So you have to go so much into detail, and that took us a lot of time and a lot of iterations and a lot of money that we don't have because we are funded without any investors. So that was a huge challenge. And at one point we had finally we had the prototype, but then we obviously didn't know, okay, is actually anyone else interested in it? And then we thought, okay, let's come up the entrepreneurial way and let's do a crowdfunding campaign where we put up the prototype and people can pre-order it, and with that money we can pre-finance the first production round, because otherwise we couldn't have managed without the financial resources.
Wow. That sounds like you went through a lot of trouble to make a lot of women very happy.
Yeah. The trouble was real, and I think especially looking backwards, I think if I would have known what I got into it, I'm not sure if I would do it again. No, just kidding. I would do it again, but it was tough.
I can understand that though, because in my time as a designer, when you look at things from the inside of the industry, you're kind of like, as you said, it's so tough to even get, like, I haven't even thought about shoulder pads. Like the thing that always comes to my mind is like a zipper, because like
Mm-hmm.
a zipper
Yeah.
alone has so many tiny components. Is this all
Mm-hmm.
sustainably made? Is it certified? Especially in the EU, everything needs to kind of be certified. It's absolutely fascinating. But the route you are going with getting it at least like at least the minimum decomposable, that's so fantastic, because what do we want to achieve in the end, right? We need to have less waste in the world. And with that, I think that's absolutely fantastic. So, what
Yeah.
does sustainable fashion mean to you now that you are a founder of sustainable fashion?
I think it always meant the same to me. For me, really including sustainability at the core of your business means for me taking on responsibility. I think it's crazy that other companies produce a shitload of things that are cheap and harmful and toxic and wasteful, and don't feel that they would be accountable for anything around them. So for me, like, if you mean it the way that you really integrate it in your business from A to Z, in every single decision, for me it means really taking on responsibility for the products you create until they are no longer used, and not until and beyond, basically. So also, what happens with the products if no one wants it anymore? What is happening with the products if they might end up on another country or like continent, even somewhere in the Atacama Desert? Even then, I as a founder want to know that at least it won't stay there for the next 200 years and contaminating the soil, because then at least I know our things will biodegrade and not be harmful to the nature.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good point. Yeah.
It sounds very easy to integrate it, but if you look at the supply chain, this is such a difficult task, because it's not only about the design according to the cradle to cradle philosophy, it's also about what materials you use. Are they certified? Are the animals that give the wool are treated well? So what about animal welfare? What about the chemicals? What about the way it's dyed? where it's spun. What about the working conditions of the people being there? Are they safe? Are they treated well? And are they paid well? So there are so many aspects. And then, of course, it continues. What about, for example, not giving a lot of discounts to accelerate consumption, because that's not what we want. And it's like an entire universe of decisions. But I think if you really committed to sustainability, you have your North Star, and every decision in a company is determined by it.
Yeah, so you have it in every aspect of the company, which is great because, right, your slogan is to wear your values, but of course you need to always live up that slogan first, right? And you don't only wear your values, but you produce to wear your values, which is like bringing the entire loop together, which is a fantastic philosophy to have. Speaking of philosophy, can you maybe explain for the people who are not necessarily in that world as much what the cradle philosophy is?
Yeah. Yeah, so Cradle to Cradle is a design philosophy that enables a circular economy. So it means that the very concept of waste is eliminated. There is no waste. So usually everything that, so every resource we take from nature, for example, is used. And in a linear economy, for example, is at one point thrown away, is wasted. But in a circular economy with the cradle to cradle philosophy, it's reused again. So there is no waste. Everything is a resource for something else again. And that means, for example, that you have to design for recyclability or for biodegradability or both. And so that you already think what is happening with the product when it's no longer worn or cannot be longer worn. What is happening then? Even if it's destroyed, what is happening with the materials? What is happening with the buttons? We don't want to waste it, so you have to already think about the end of life of a product while designing it at the very beginning of the product development.
Fantastic. I think that will be very informative for the listeners to get an understanding of other philosophies and other approaches of fashion and sustainability for sure. So thank you so much. Now you have already spoken to the impact that you hope to achieve through the sustainable aspect of your business. But is there any other impact that you hope to have with the design part of it?
Hmm. Yeah, so my dream is to really empower women in their daily lives when they wear a Lotta Ludwigson piece. So, for example, if you don't feel well in the morning, you're stressed out, you have a busy day ahead, and you're not really full of energy, but then you go to your closet, you see this maybe here color block suit with pink and red, and you put it on, and like that your entire attitude changes, your energy changes, you have a confident boost, and you think, okay, now I'm going out there and yeah, do whatever it takes to achieve my dreams.
That is amazing. And that's the fashion of psychology of it behind it, right? It's like what does clothing do to you mind in your mind to help you conquer the world? And that's in the end what we women need to do anyway, right? We need to go out there and conquer the
Yes.
world.
Definitely. And I think it works especially well with suits. Even women I've seen, they said, oh no, I'm not a suit type or I'm not a blazer type. I said, ah, come on, try it. Just try it to see. They put it on and I've seen it. Like before, the shoulders were like that. And then they looked into the mirror and everything lifted up. And they looked at themselves, and I could really see how everything changed. it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's me go back to like your slogan, because I'm so like, this is such a wonderfully picked slogan. Where are your values? How does your work with Lotta Ludwigson align with your personal values and beliefs?
Yeah, 100%. Because I think, for me at least, it's very important to do something that has a purpose. So I'm a very purpose driven person. And I just cannot work for a company where I don't see any value in it, in terms of, yeah, sustainability, or that my values are represented. So for me, it's clear now. Of course, I have a mission, I have a vision. I know why am I doing it. I know why I'm working so many hours, and have all that stress. But yeah, because I want to be fully aligned with my own values. Yeah, to contribute at least a little bit, to changing the world for the better. Of course, we are not changing the world only with our suits, but if everyone does a little thing that has more meaning and purpose, that would be great.
Yeah, and it also makes people happier in the end, right? Because if everyone is driven a bit more by purpose, it means that people will feel more fulfilled, and fulfillment is so important, and fulfillment then also circles back to you feeling more confident and being more aligned with your own values and being aligned with who you actually are, who you want to be. So
Yeah,
that's, yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. You already
yeah.
spoke to one moment where one customer, forcibly tried on your blazer and it changed their life in a way. Can you share maybe another specific story or an example where Lotta Ludwigson made a significant positive impact on the environment or also the community?
I think for the community, when we stay in that more style and aesthetics area, I think what I love to see is, we have a lot of young or younger women that um, want to gift themselves something special for something that they achieved. So, for
Mm.
example, we have many women that say, okay, once I get the promotion, once I get the new job, once whatever, I will gift a suit to myself because I'm proud of what I've achieved and I want to show it. I deserve it and I'm worth it. And I absolutely love it. And I think this is a great achievement over the past, yeah, decades, that women are at that point, yeah, pursuing their career and achieving their goals, and then being proud of it and saying, okay, now I deserve something just for me, not for anyone else. I don't
Yeah.
want to look good for, yeah, but for myself. And that's amazing. I love it. So that's more on the psychological level. But then, yeah, obviously we also support, for example, with every product that we sell, we support an initiative in Nepal, for yeah, women and girls that are usually banned from their communities during their menstruation. So we support by yeah, supporting an organization that is producing menstruation pads in a circular way from banana fibers. And like that,
Mm.
those girls and women have the possibility to stay in the community, to continue go to school, to continue go to work, and are not banned just because they are women and girls. And I absolutely love it that we can have an impact even beyond clothes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's again empowering women, right? And empowering women also in that case to have just basic care and basic education to become who they want to be. So wow, wow, I can only applaud that. Really, really fantastic. I want to next touch upon a topic that is not happily discussed, but I think it's very important because when I look at sustainability, the challenge that I see outside of the circular fashion is also the approachability. So not only from
Mhm.
like style wise, because for me as an example, as we spoke to earlier, I'm not really into wearing something that looks maybe a bit more in the style lines ecologically, in a way of like the neutral colors, because they just don't suit me so well. Um, but the thing is also considering the political climate and the climate of economics, it's very tough to afford good, valuable clothing. And you don't at this point also know anymore, is even the highest expensive brands, do they even produce well? So I have looked into your pricing, and your pricing is set relatively high for a normal standard income. How did you come to the conclusion, or like, I'm aware that yeah, the costs of production must be quite expensive and everything, but how do you, I guess, justify the higher price that is not necessarily as approachable for everyone?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we know that that's still a problem, an issue. That right now we are producing for a niche, both in terms of the price, but also in terms of the product itself. Like a
Yeah.
suit is very niche, and the prices are rather high, but not because we just set them high. The problem is that all the materials are extremely expensive because we create our own fabrics. So we're not just ordering some fabrics that you find somewhere, then it might be cheaper, but we create our own fabrics to ensure that they are dyed in a way without any toxic chemicals, with animal welfare, and so on, um, in small quantities. And I think this is the biggest problem because we said, first of all, we cannot afford to have these huge quantities that maybe would allow us that the material part goes down. But at the same time, because like your capital is basically, how you say, bound for a year or longer, when it's like in the fabrics until you sell them, for example, the suits. But also because we are such a young company and we are just starting and we don't know how much we are selling because we are still very small. So we said, okay, instead of producing hundred thousands, which maybe, yeah, then we could have a different price. We stay in a small size, small production batches, small quantities to ensure that nothing goes to waste at the very end. But rather like, okay, if it's gone, then we create new, start a new production, but everything is in very small, limited quantities. Um, but obviously, then also, if you want to ensure that people are paid in a fair way, and all our production is not somewhere in China, Bangladesh, or somewhere, it's in Europe. Not even like in Europe as well, but also in the EU, which has, again, even higher regulations than in Europe general. Um, so yeah, that all adds up basically. Even though we try to reduce the costs in terms of, for example, we have a very small office. We don't pay ourselves a lot. It's very, very, very little. But still, yeah, I think the main issue are the quantities right now. That hopefully change at one point.
Yeah, but it also like it that's also the point, right? I think people out there are not only for, I mean, not everyone can afford higher some people cannot even afford to go to Zara, so they go to Primark, or they order something at Timu or Shine or whatever, right? But the problem is that, and that's what I'm also so frustrated to see, this hype over fast fashion. If we slow it
Mhm.
down and we start to slowly and then slowly increase the amounts due to demand coming up, then I think it would be already so much healthier also for the environment. You don't have to have 50 blazers in your wardrobe that you bought in 1 year. It's good if you have like one or two that will just do you just fine, and they will last you for a like for eternity. That's also the thing, right? um if I would buy your suit, which I will, when I treat myself, as you said, to something after like a special occasion, then that suit will be with me. My sisters might sneak it from me for like a moment, but it will stay with me until I die, because I don't believe in throwing garments out until they fall apart. You can
Mhm.
mend things, you can repair things, and I think we need to start value not only wearing our values, but also valuing what we wear more.
Yeah,
So
and also to care, like to properly care about your garments. Because once you know, okay, this was an investment, it was a lot of money for me, but yeah, I deserve it, I get the suit, you will treat it completely differently. You won't throw it somewhere in your corner when you get home. No, you will hang it properly on your wooden hangers and make sure it's fine. Yeah, so yeah, you start creating a relationship again to your pieces, to your
yeah,
clothes. And also, by what you said before, I 100% agree. We also have, yeah, some people, of course, they say, yeah, but I cannot afford it, which I completely understand. But then I see them going to Zara 5 or 6 times in a row, and in the end, I think they spend more money on the shopping than they would have spent for one suit. But in the end, it's also, yeah, a priority. And
yeah,
for some, it's more important to have good quality, high end materials that are also good for your skin. And for others, it's more the fashionable approach. And I think everyone has yeah, a different learning curve or awareness. Yeah.
yeah. I cannot agree with that more. I try to teach everyone around me who has not have heard it before, to look not at the upfront cost, but to look at the cost per wear. Because if
Yes.
like I have a blouse that I bought probably 7 years ago, and that blouse, I kind of bought out of a necessity because I needed something really quick, and it needed to be like a white
Mhm.
blouse that just fits me okay. I didn't even care. I just needed it to throw it under a blazer that I already owned, and I wore it one time, because after that,
Hmm.
when I washed it, and I know how to read a washing label. I mean, I worked in the industry, so you know, and I kind of was very careful with it. And after the wash, it just never was like it was before. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, great. So I spent like what, 30 pounds on that now? Um, and
Mhm.
it was a super cheap, quick, easy thing, but I could wear it one time. That's 30 pounds per wear. That's crazy. And then on the other hand, I have a
Yeah.
blouse from my grandmother that I took after her passing. Not only is it emotionally valuable because there's so many memories attached to it, but it's also like
Mhm.
I wear this all the time. So I don't
Yeah.
even know what she spent on it, but let's say it was 100 pounds. At this point, it's probably less than a pound per wear because I've worn it so many times. And I think that's also something that people need to look at more. Yes, it's an upfront cost and you have to come up with the upfront cost. But if you care for
Mhm.
it properly, and it's also what I appreciate, what you are also doing on your social media channels. You're not only just showing what you're doing, like a lot of brands do, like, oh, newest collection out now, da da da. but you are also explaining like how to care for certain things, how you should never throw a blazer into a washing machine. So I think that what you are doing is absolutely amazing, because you are not only educating people in a very polite and wonderful way, but you are also creating something that has so much meaning. So yeah, that's absolutely
Yeah, thank
fantastic.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we always try to keep it real and show or have a good mixture between, of course, showing how we style the clothes, but then also, yeah, how to care, take proper care, how it's produced, like all these education aspects, and then of course a little bit of startup life to also show it's not that glamorous. Actually, it's a lot of work, but that's also very interesting to people, that they see there are real people behind it, and that it's still us packing the orders. And I think that's really interesting for people, if they know, okay, I spent a lot of money, but then I know there's someone behind it making a little dance when the order comes in, really being happy, and then going to pack the order with a lot of love. And that's also amazing. I mean, where do you have it like that?
Yeah, it's just really transparent and authentic, right? I mean, you're showing who you authentically are, and you're also showing your excitement for what you do, which is infecting other people, and like, oh yeah, I want to wake up. I want to wake up and do something that's really exciting to me. And hey, maybe a blazer can help me facilitate that, because I will step into my professional power woman self
Yeah,
and then move forward with that. So I really love what you're doing.
thank
Coming
you.
back to the aspect of like fast fashion and slow fashion and sustainable fashion, um, fast fashion is only as successful not only for the price point, of course, but also because it can pick up on trends really, really quickly, and it turns it over so fast. Knowing that you are slowing this process down, how do you approach trends, or do you even approach trends at all? Do you have other aspects of design emphasis?
Mhm. Yeah, the thing is, we are not following trends because our production cycle is so long that we would know, even if we want to pick up trends, we will be too late to the party, anyways. So we don't even try it. But also because we don't believe in trends. So we want to create something that you can wear for a long time, or that you can even pass on to your children and so on, and produce high quality pieces, and not crazy shapes where you think, okay, who can ever wear this? Or maybe just for like a party. No. So things like the pieces that we create, they should stay relevant and trendy in their own meaning for a long, 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 long time. Maybe even, yeah, more than one generation. That would be great. So therefore, there is no proper need to look into trends. I think also from our mindset, nor Nuha nor me, we are really people following trends. I, for example, I was always wearing what felt good, no matter what people thought. Is it on Vogue, the color or not, or the shape? I don't care. I mean, I'm now sitting here with this suit in Berlin. I mean, if you go out to the streets, everyone's just wearing black. So I don't care what the trends are, because then I don't know, maybe you also lose yourself a little bit if you don't know who you are and what you should wear or what feels good for you. Of course, if you want to wear trends, go for it. But sometimes I wonder if it's also often that people don't really know or haven't like who they are and who, yeah, what's their personality if they jump from right to left to all those trends.
Yeah, and I mean, it's always good. I always advocate for people to experiment and figure out, like, also through clothing, what feels good for them. That's when I was working as primarily as a stylist. I noticed that when people just tried on different shapes alone and starting to look at their
Mm-hmm.
body as it is, not as it should be, then it changed their perception of, oh, I should maybe actually wear like a maxi skirt because I don't maybe like my legs so much, but then with like a cinched waist because it accentuates my waist, which I never thought I had, right? So it's like experimenting is good to develop like who you are, developing your own personal style, but that's what it is, right? It's in the end your personal style that makes you
Yeah.
not only feel confident and good, but it also represents in a longer aspect who you are. And I think that's also very empowering. And you are feeding into that in such a multi level of sustainable approach, wearing your values, and making it in such a fun way. So, my question is nonetheless, how did you like what was your inspiration for this color block? Because the colors are very specific.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to say. So even if we don't follow trends, it can happen, like now, that it is a trend as well. But we planned it 2 years ago. And we already planned, for example, also the entire candy pink suit. But then we had some issues with the production and so on, so it took longer. So it should have been out last summer. And then I thought, when I saw Barbie, like, oh my God, this is crazy, because now everyone is wearing like candy pink suits, and we had it already in the production, and we had no idea. Back then, I didn't even know that they planned to have that Barbie movie and so on, and what a hype it will be and what a trend. So even if you don't design for trends, or you don't want to wear trends, it can happen that, yeah, you're kind of the products that shouldn't follow trends are following trends at the same time. Yeah, so that's a thing. So it was only out of our own ideas, also because I really love the color combination already for many years, and every time I wore it, people commented on it like, oh wow, this looks so cool. So I thought, okay, this could be something that people like, not knowing that it's now a thing to have this kind of color combination.
Yeah, I love that. Maybe you had your pulse, like the finger on the pulse of time unconsciously where it had to be, you know? I sometimes like to be like I like to be a naive believer that everything happens for a reason. Maybe the production was supposed to not work out as it should be, so you are literally slotting it in perfectly now. And you still gave it your different twist though, because I don't think that
True.
what you have is like a total unbrand Barbie. It's actually way more approachable than that. So now we've talked about what your inspiration is from, what your business stands for, what you stand for. Um, Now, maybe you can give some advice to the listeners, or and hopefully potentially consumers, that what advice can you give them to make more sustainable fashion choices?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So definitely also what we touched upon, to not only follow trends. I mean, I believe it's true what you said, like experiment a lot, but not because someone says it, this and that is like on vogue, but because it feels good. So maybe you feel like at one point you say, okay, I tried that skirt, I tried that, maybe a bit more oversized, maybe that color, but decide on it not because it's trendy, but because you feel good when wearing it. Um, and I think this is something that we missed a lot in the last decade or decades, that we are so influenced by other people, by magazines, by influencers, and so on, that we forget how we feel, even if it's not trendy. And I think this is like, yeah, something I can everyone only encourage to go back into that feeling. And then also, what I love is to not only dress for the job you have, but for the job you want. Because that's something I always struggled for. Even when I was an intern, I dressed up, and then people also told me, don't you think it's a bit too much for like just being an intern? And I always felt so bad. And then at one point I also started to like dress down a lot. And then someone told me, well, no, don't do it, Charlotte. Like, dress for the job you want and not for the job you have. Because then you become a completely different person, and to be more authentic, even in your professional life and in your leisure time, just dress the way you want. And I think there's no better time than now where women can actually do that. And then obviously start maybe also reading more about the brands that you buy. Go to their website, see what they are writing about sustainability. Go really deep. And I get it, as a consumer you cannot maybe go read through all products that you might eventually buy, but if you have the capacity, somehow start digging a little more deeper and to understand the processes also behind. And then obviously invest in quality and not quantity, and start also really looking into the label, what materials are in there, and if it's possible to avoid polyester, because it's such a difficult material in many aspects. So and I can assure you, once you go for the natural materials, for the good high quality things like wool and so on, you can never go back, because then you really feel the difference.
I cannot agree more. I actually have a suit in my wardrobe that's full, like 100% linen. It's a pain because it's wrinkling so much, because it's just what linen's nature is. But my grandmother used to say, like, oh yeah, linen has like this, the linen crinkling is actually like an elegant crinkling because it's linen. So I
Yeah.
kind of, just live by that. But this suit I can so easily wear in summer when
Mm-hmm.
it's breathing hot. It's amazing because it has a cooling effect, and polyester could
Yeah.
never. Polyester actually makes me sweat more. I'm going to get drenched.
Yeah.
Anything that's underneath warm is completely
Exactly.
drenched. So that's, yeah, fantastic advice, and all advice you've given. That's like some humdingers in there. Fantastic. I want to touch upon one thing that also affected me personally in the last 5 years. Um, how do you think the pandemic has changed the fashion industry, how it used to be and how it is now?
Yeah, good question. So I think, first of all, it showed how vulnerable the entire industry is, the entire supply chain, especially with producing so far away in Bangladesh and so on. And that maybe some companies understood, well, this is actually a very difficult construct. So maybe they need to nearshore again. So many companies are now moving back to Europe to produce there, to be in more control. And in the beginning of the pandemic, I at least had the feeling, I don't know if it was my bubble, that people became more consciously what they consume, started to invest in better and more high quality pieces in terms of furniture, in terms of fashion, in terms of the food they were eating. But now, once the pandemic is over, it's very subjective. I have the feeling fast fashion is even accelerating more. So it's something like people forgot what they learned through the pandemic, kind of. And now we are, I mean, we are now in the era of ultra fast fashion. So Zara and H&M, like those volumes is nothing against Shein, Temu, and so on. So I don't know how that could happen so quickly. So I think it showed how how vulnerable the industry is and how consumer behavior could change for the better, but now it also shows how it can change for the worse.
Yeah, and that's kind of the scary part. Because I'm kind of so detached from the industry from that perspective because I'm not producing anymore and I'm not in it for like the designing aspect. I also am not looking as much into the trends of the market as much anymore. But like a couple months ago, like it hit me like a wall. Like like on social media, I open TikTok and everything is Timo, everything is Shein, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, weren't we on a better pathway? So I'm so glad that yeah, it's not as subjective, I think, as you think. So I've noticed that as well, which I don't, as a psychologist, cannot understand.
Hmm.
We could discuss about like a rebound effect because people want to rebel against the sustainability or whatever, but I don't, that doesn't make any sense to me, like as on a human basis. So I don't know. So we can only hope for the better in the future. Which also leads me to my next question. We have spoken now from the past 5 years. Where do you see Lotta Ludwigson in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of sustainability growth? And also, where do you see the world in a, eh, let's look through our positive, optimistic bubble?
Yeah, so definitely I see Lotta Ludwigson, yeah, being in more markets. Of course, now when you live in the European Union, you can order it already, but our main market is currently still Germany. So we really hope to expand geographically, but then also in terms of products and to reach more women that can, in the end, wear their values. That would be great. And like that, obviously also to scale, to have a bigger positive impact. Yeah, to become more often the alternative to conventional suits for those women. So these would be in terms of Lotta Ludwigson. And yeah, for the fashion industry, I mean, what I see is what we just said. Yeah, fast fashion turned into ultra fast fashion and is accelerating a lot, having a lot of negative environmental and societal impact. But at the same time, also the sustainable and slow fashion movement is getting bigger and bigger, and people becoming, even when it's slowly, more aware of the negative consequences of fast fashion, and therefore, if they can, decide against it and really start thinking of how to invest in smaller but better pieces. This is what I see from, but at the same time, I think those two things will go parallelly. And the problem with parallels is that they usually never cross paths. So I think those two streams will stay there and both will accelerate and grow. Yeah, I think this is what I see, those two worlds.
Yeah. Maybe at some point, Lotta Ludwigson is so big that people will only look towards your approach rather than others, and we can maybe change people's mindsets, and we start sustainability anyway here, in our heads and our minds. And then I hope that from that on, people will just hopefully go back to, you know, the the healthy way, not only healthy for themselves and for their pocket, but also for the world.
Maybe one note, yeah, this is also something that we see and that we aspire to do more, is basically to inspire bigger companies to do the same. And we already see it now. We get approached from really, really big corporates that are really interested in how we do it, what's the cradle to cradle design philosophy, and so on. And since we know that we could never produce in such a way, at such like mass market, we actually hope they will pick it up and have a similar philosophy, because they can create like a huge impact. So the bigger maybe we become, or yeah, the bigger hopefully also the impact on other companies will be.
Oh, Charlotte, I could talk with you all day. It has been such an insightful conversation, and I think this is so valuable to learn different aspects of sustainability and different approaches to sustainability as well. As you might be aware, we do have a closing tradition in this podcast that every podcast episode we challenge our listeners, which facilitates growth, intentionality, and awareness. Could you please introduce our listeners to your Style My Mind challenge? What action or mindset would you like them to adopt to support sustainable fashion or anything along what you do?
Yes. Yeah, so my challenge for the listeners would be to document your outfits over a certain period. So maybe you start with 1 month first, and to either take pictures or write down what pieces you are wearing on a daily basis. And in the end, you will have a look and see what are your go-to pieces, what are the go-to materials that you use or that you're wearing most often, what are the go-to colors, because that already gives a lot of insights on in what kind of clothes you feel most comfortable, most alive, feel good. And then once you know it, you can then also shop in the future accordingly, to not have to not buy things that maybe aren't your style, aren't your colors, aren't the materials that you actually like. And like that also, yeah, you know what are your favorite pieces, and then continue to build up on them.
That is such a fantastic Style My Mind challenge. Definitely. If guys, if you are doing this, make sure you document everything. And even if you share your results just in a written post or anything, you don't have to share anything that you don't feel comfortable with. Let us know. Give us the hashtag Style My Mind challenge into the post so we get visibility. And I'm very, very curious to see how you are transforming your own life by looking internally and in your wardrobe first. Charlotte, thank you so much once again for being here and having this conversation with me. Listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share and do all of those beautiful things. Charlotte, where can they find you? And Lotta
Yeah, you
Ludwigson.
can yeah, of course. So you can, of course, we have a website. So go there, check it out. And then, of course, we also use a lot of Instagram. So step by and yeah, follow our journey along.
Fantastic. So yeah, I will also put all of this information into the info box so people can find you even quicker. But yeah, if you enjoyed this episode, again, please like, subscribe, share, and do all of those beautiful things. Say hi and give some love and kindness to Charlotte and Lotta Ludwigson. And always keep your head held high, embrace your journey to sustainability, and be open to style your mind. Thank you so much.